Honestly, if I have to listen to one more arse-boil banging on about Keir Starmer's decency, woof. We've had to listen to this shit ever since the UK's android-in-chief became leader of the Labour Party. Keir Starmer's inherent decency. But very quickly, instantly, in fact, when it came out that Starmer and a number of other Labour MPs were merrily receiving free gifts from wealthy donors and other sources, it became glaringly obvious that some of us have extremely different ideas about what constitutes decency. Just the blatant hypocrisy of it after spending so much time preaching about corruption and vowing to clean up politics while in opposition. But that's Keir Decency Incarnate Starmer for you, a lying hypocrite right from the start. A series of statements rode back on, and a series of promises broken. And don't give me any bullshit about political realities that suddenly change when you attain office. Starmer knew exactly what he was about. He never had any intention of doing anything Labour members wanted. In fact, his intention was the very opposite. His intention was to carry on with Tory economic orthodoxy. It was not only to continue with, but to go further with Tory plans to criminalise protest in almost all forms. Starmer's intentions were, quite plainly, to destroy whatever remained of the Labour left and turn the party into a soulless clique of self-serving career technocrats with not a single core belief to share between them other than naked self-interest. The man is a serial liar, in service of his own quest for power. Just look at his record in office. The Green New Deal, gone. The Employment Rights Act, watered down. Leasehold laws, tinkered with to favour the landlords for just a little bit longer. He wheedled his way into the top position, promising to continue the Corbyn project, or at least to embrace the kind of socialist ideals that would see the whole of society served fairly, and then ditched them almost immediately as his pale, synthetic arse cheeks hit the chair in number 10. The fucking liar. In opposition, he promised Lord's reform and scrapping the two-child benefit cap. As things stand now, Lord's reform is a far-off pipe dream, and the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap, which incredibly Starmer claims both as a personal victory and as proof of his exalted moral sanctity, only happened because he was forced into it by unhappy backbenchers. The same reason, by the way, he was forced into backing off from the punitive welfare reforms targeting the disabled. Careful you don't trip over all that virtue. Yet still, we're all supposed to believe that deep down Keir Starmer is so full of decency, so packed to the gills with unconditional benevolence, that it's this that compresses his lungs and causes him to speak in that emotionally empty, blocked nasal whine he uses to bore us all into somnolent compliance. In my book, and I suspect an entire library of other people's books, Keir Starmer is a long fucking way off from anything even remotely resembling what you and I might think of as decency. Put it this way, if decency is Ayers Rock in Australia, then Keir Starmer is in Birmingham, the one on the moon, if the moon had been knocked out of orbit and was hurtling away from this galaxy halfway to Andromeda. And yes, there's a Birmingham on the moon. But these claims about Starmer's decency have really stretched credulity to breaking point over the last week or so, following the revelations about Peter Mandelson and the extent of his well-known relationship with egg-dicked dead pedo Jeffrey Epstein. By now, we all know that Morgan McSweeney, the expired chicken McNugget hired by Starmer to be his chief of staff, resigned last Sunday for his role in advising his employer to appoint Peter Mandelson as US ambassador, essentially taking the fall for Keir Starmer, the man who ultimately made the decision to appoint Mandelson, and who, despite this, and despite being so awe-inspiringly full of unimpeachable decency that every time he sneezes he risks spraying his immediate environment in saintly goodness, was quite happy to sit back and watch Chicken McSweeney slide slowly down his own skewer. Bad advice. Really, that's what you're going with. Even if, in a distant parallel universe, that were true, then there would still be equally massive questions to answer about Keir Starmer's staggeringly poor judgment. I mean, I could advise him to shave off his cock with a cheese grater, but if he went ahead and did that, well, the remaining shredded ribbons of his genitalia flapping in the wind like wet wool, that would be on him, not me. But in this case, Starmer's decision was not another example of his stunning incompetence and unfitness for the job, of which there are plenty, but something which he knew was fucking disgusting and did anyway. One, because the arrogant technocratic prick could give a shit about what the little people think, and two, he made the cold, bloodless calculation that Mandelson's relationship with Epstein, again, that's Mandelson's widely known relationship with Epstein, meant more than the suffering and trauma of all of Epstein's victims. Keir Starmer, Mr. Decency himself, made the decision that political expediency was of higher value than the trafficking and systematic rape and sexual abuse of minors. Later, we had to listen to him lie about winning every fight he's ever been in, which will be news to every one of us who have watched him execute one U-turn after another. And then, admirably remaining upright in the slippery puddle of nobility oozing from his toes, tell the country, "I'm not prepared to walk away from my mandate and my responsibility to my country." By all means, take a fucking bus. Keir Starmer is not a decent man, and both his peers on either side of the aisle and the media need to stop saying it. I know they only do it to cover their asses for having supported him or bigged him up in the first place, and they hate looking stupid. But it's too late. You do look fucking stupid. And asking us to pretend that you didn't say he was a good man, that he was the adult in the room who was going to end years of governmental chaos, is like Starmer asking everyone to pretend he didn't know that Mandelson was, in the words of Zara Sultana, besties with a convicted nonce. He's a phony, a deceiver, a control freak who would rather sack or silence members of his own party than allow them a different opinion to his own. He's a prevaricator who, out of one side of his mouth, tells us that he's on a moral mission to fight the far-right scourge of Nigel Farage and Reform UK, while out of the other, he calls the UK an island of strangers like a cheap Enoch Powell mannequin and boasts about how many deportations he's done this week. And now, we all get to see him as a man who would happily choose, as a representative of the UK, a known close associate of a famously convicted paedophile and child sex trafficker, over the feelings of the victims of that paedophile, just to ingratiate himself with the white supremacist piece of shit sitting in the Oval Office. Decency? Fuck off. If Keir Starmer is decent, then the word no longer has any meaning. And anyone who keeps making that claim is no longer worth listening to.